All right, we're back from recess. Can I just confirm, I also have Roberto Pitter. Is he here? Jennifer Camacho, written, okay. And Eddie Cruz. So Eddie, yeah, you're the only one left, so would you join us? Can we put one more chair up here so he doesn't sit alone on his panel? Is that everyone who wanted to testify? All right. Okay. Thank you so much for waiting today. Very much appreciated. We'll begin with Mariana Wendon.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Mariana Wendon. I am 14 years old and I live in the village of PT. I was born and raised in Guam and I've lived here my whole life. The motocross track is my second home. I was 4 years old when I got my first dirt bike. Over the years, I've progressed and I now ride a 250cc in the schoolboy class and in the women's senior class. I love racing and I especially love racing with my friends and family. Being in the motocross community, I have met many incredible people who have become my lifelong friends. I have raced competitively in both Saipan and Texas, and I have met many other female racers who I look up to there. Now, it is the young girls on Guam who look up to me. Motocross is a good way to form special relationships between people of all ages and genders. Not only do I race, but I am also an official and volunteer. I handle all registration of riders on race day. I count laps for races to determine placement, and I start and end races. I help organize awards and events such as the Easter egg hunt. The raceway is my home, and I would hate to see people deny young kids, including myself, the chance to race competitively. Motocross is not just a sport, it's a community where we all build each other up to thrive. I support Bill 5637, and I hope we are able to come together and save the track and its wonderful community.
Thank you, Mariana. Joey Chrysostomo.
Hafaday, Madam Speaker and honorable senators of 37th Guam Legislature. I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today. My name is Joey Chrysostomo, and I'm a proud local businessman and motorsports racer. You know, I'm here today to talk about racing and keeping that alive, keeping the racetrack alive and how it serves our community. Personally, I've been involved with racing and motorsports since I was 11 years old. Since 1971, I started racing a 60cc mini bike, and that was when the racetrack was in Apra Heights. Racing has been a big part of my and my family's life, and I owe a lot of my success in life to racing at the tracks here on Guam. Throughout my years, I have seen thousands of Guamanian families get involved with motorsports. And without family support, our young racers will not be able to enjoy it. One rider in the family means the entire family is out there supporting him or her. Racing and motorsports in general teaches our people responsibility, commitment, discipline, goal setting, and having an active, healthy lifestyle. To race on a Sunday means you have to practice during the week, work on your bike or car, and get physically ready. Picture a 10-year-old kid, a 6-year-old, 4-year-old. After racing, they get home, it's not over. They've got to wash their bike, wash their gear, lube it, get it ready for practice the following week. It teaches responsibility, and it's a lot of hard work. But in life, you can't be successful without hard work. You can't race and win without putting in the hard work. And that's what life's about. If you take care of your equipment will take care of you. Same thing with your body. This sport also keeps everyone off the streets and limit their time behind a computer screen or an iPhone or what have you. Typhoon Mawar, my grandkids, they're out playing, they're out riding their bicycle, they're out running, you know, because they're living an active lifestyle. The racetrack provides so much to our community, from mountain bike racing to running to just exploring the cliffs and hiking, and then also racing that comes along with it. As a business owner, I feel proud when I see a racer or enthusiast open a business that is related to racing. Presently, there are over 10 businesses on the island that are directly related to racing and sports. All of this is because of our facility. Without a racetrack, I wouldn't know where I'd be right now in life, what career I would have if there was no racetrack. And know that with racing and how the family involvement is, you're going to see, your second and third generations racing as a family grows. It's a big part of my life. It's a big part of the racers and athletes' life, and I ask you to keep that alive. Keep those dreams alive for the kids. Si Diyos masi.
Si Diyos masi, Mr. Chrysostomo. Ron Laguanya.
Si Diyos masi, gehelo speaker. Todos samjugi legislaturan Guam. Donkulo na agradecimento. Dan si Diyos masi na unaizo ni esti na oportunidad. Zawar bloki na pabay tuna si Joey dan todos siya ni masupopoti esti kinarera na banda. Unggan parewa sinenteku taza lelekta put ikinarera usupoti. Zawa loki na pabay suli esti na oportunidad pabay tuna ikwentosnya si Alicia I guess it was the telephone in London. Unggan si Alice Tyron ni bonito ikwentosnya sino. Pabesongan na udisa preba esti na lai priniponi I 5637 put rason na istain tingo na timalalangan itsetsunia. Tamana na mamanggi si Warren Pelletier gija direktor adi sa preba. Tisinya esti calo na para manai guatus ti para siya ni tisinya malangan loki itsetsunia. Esti siya natano, sagrado esti siya natano. Debi dio saga gizahita, umaingkat ka gizahita, ni manaw tautano. Este I primera na grupo gi menao antes di esti masasangan put sa lapi jang kaskao. Karena esta malefaw apa I asunto. Tasasangan put I racetrack ikinarera logopya sa lapi malalagnus. Edzigi ipunto gini. Guaha mamasalalapi gini. Guahatano ma-asignas ta papa gita Santa Rita 680 acres para karera. Lontunga pa, ti mamalago. Sa tawza kaskao gui. Edzigi ipunto gini. Ta suporti ikinarera pa ifamaguon lo atan haji siya gini man mamasalalapi. Ti mapureno. Atan na edzonya network festi siya. Imanggagi gini. Edza. Zon lii. Sa tipu ikinarera kalan osu. Sama na pandannya todis siya gini magi. Logaha gini puntu. Isinakin sa lapi gini. Isinakin itano. Edzigi gini. Unggan masasangan na. Bula problema tagini gina tano. Asangan na si Senator Casper Barr, lo disti edzo, disti anima prebas din lagi 98 na sakkan. Sesuzo malofan gi ulo zau lili na magwagwadok, bebendi kaskao. Tres años siga magwadok. Taza racetrack lini gui. Pura ji makina siga magwadok. Atso jang kaskao. Zani truck siya manuhuzong edzigi, lili gi ulo. Tres años sagay gi za dedido, tres años jo lizo. Kaskao hujung janalum taza racetrack dabe. Gagas kom pelekute ne osingi guiza mulili, hami mulili, mamepes kam gi ulo. Wa isa sajan pagat endigi peskan mamemelo kada malofanam gui pura pik truck kaskao gui malolofan taza racetrack. Edzigi problema gui ni maneluhu manenaho. Atan hafa matsotsogi gini. Usupoti Joey esti racetrack. Unggan. Maudayo loki motorcycle rasa azu gini manita gini tempo. Lo, I problema gini. I guaha mama salalapi. Edzigi. Za angin para o famamasalapir ne, polo za hita lamun ni tau tano. Angin mamalagit ta fambenni kaskapes polo za hita. Edzo na salapi usaga. Jo ini maingkat ga gi za hita ni manau tau tano. 50% mahana estisya mamakaskauji, 50% mahana parasia, sa 50% pai tano CHAMORRO. Debi di todo na kaskau na salapi u halom gi trust i CLTC. Edzigi zo debi. Kala mafasinenek sahid gue. Sweti naman gaigis ti siya gini. Uingkat gas ti siya na para o matsogi tsetsunia. Alice Tyrant, Donkulo na si Zeus Maasi Quintosmo, David Herrera, si Earl, hamzo siya ni member gi komisyon, parewa o gagyo gi Ancestral Lands Commission, guaw lokyo pupulan na no siya. Uaatan sa bula kumbalotsis, tumatatsu para mantaw-tawta, kumulili na gwa malabida, mentalo gi zaho na para. Ennigi man maingkat gahe mane luhu hita ni manau tau tano gini debiri ta protei hafa gwagwaha tetenan put favor atan istisya tungo gini mamanu hafa gwagwaha gana holum angin mamalagu pata famambendi kaskau hita lamun nenno zata culi zuna salapi zata nawa salan honum sa gantoki todo no siya pareman totauta. Edzigi no siya. Di purafalay la tunga pa niya sanganay ana taytay la ikatanya ana misin nila go sa tumatsu. Anigi siya David din pegano gi haga mizu manaw tawtano hit gini gatsang manilu mga mafababay man totauta. Edzigi nagaygiyo gini. Estão biscando ti ando ko gimisan ni sitiao por estia importante na pabimenti kita hamzu na sogi dinansi por favor kana uliliji auditor para hujungi enigi malago sa anyo hungok todi sala gi santati na siga malofan i kaskau gi truck por truck esta matungi nombra siya sa pestaza salalapi leg na taza salalapi siga man lofan gi kaskau tagini pa tagini sa musangangani na para sigan lofan ni tra kaskau gini tataza salalapi ni sisita manaji gasolina ju na truck sa mapasi ji ni sumusugun gua ha salalapi peseneno edza pabena tungu todo samjo manailu na husupoti ikinarera lo gua hasta tano ni maasig na gini papa kita santerita ilai publiko 22 18 ma prebasti gi mid-1993, gagi gwini, 620 na acres, lot 289 Santa Rita, Speedway Park, Estigi, Henry, panatsagi papa, zomo racetrack, mga na ito parang fansiga, mangwado kaskaw. Ito pabisangan, usasangan ni menagayt, bulagin yun na pamamumuti, lo usasangan ni menagayt. Edza pa besangan sa nangkulo na si Diyos Masi, agango, taganawa sa manlabutsu, managang. Managinya la pa benar. Siguro na mahungukit lokin ni manaw-taw-tano, ni manaekungo ganahuzong. Tori publiko. Gracias sa Diyos na manggagam hamzo ganahuzong. Hamzo ni mamatatsung yung kat ga hamzo para insegwi din nansi. Munga manayis ti gato kita Parks and Rec. Ni siya ti malalangag itsetsu, ombi. Sweti na manopi si Warren. Sa Fio agang Warren dati manopi. Mamanggizo. Ura meeting first nothing. Itsigizo. Inting matana siya tsetsunia ti matsotsogi. Tanay dos na po. Tadza balinya. Basta sa beana sa stapabe ana pabe lisazo. Dangkulo na si Zeus Maasi todo samzo za support jamzo todo ni mangarera. Manilu si Zeus Maasi zan dispensa kumutsu ramzo lo manita todo joy. Zeus Maasi.
Si Zeus Maasi, Senyor Liguanya. Mr. Chris Nelson.
Half a day, Madam Speaker and honorable senators. Thanks for the long hearing today. We really appreciate being here, and I certainly learned a lot today being here and appreciate your time. My name is Chris Nelson. I represent Guam Auto Sports, LLC, that is doing business as Guam Adventures. That's our company name, but I'm also here to represent our employees, their families, and the local residents and tourists that have been our guests at the Guam Race Park. We're a licensed subtenant at the race park, and we operate adventure tours there. Drive experiences, off-road buggies and ATVs, go-karting, hiking, and mountain biking. We strive to give guests local experiences with local guides and teach about some of the unique plants, animals, history, culture, and customs of the Mariana Islands. We've been there for 10 years now, and we currently have one of the highest ratings of tourism satisfaction scores on Guam. The only thing that we focus on more than fun there is safety, and the race park is a very important part of the safety culture. It's just a great place to have tourists and guests. We also help maintain and care for the property, including the bathrooms. And if you've ever cleaned public bathrooms after smoking wheels, I would hope for a little round of applause right there. I'd like to thank the Guam Racing Federation and also the CHAMORRO Land Trust for supporting us in opening up operations at the race park 10 years ago. It was visionary, and they have a committed partner in us, and we stayed around during the pandemic. We almost didn't make it, and we didn't lay anyone off despite tremendous losses the last 3 years, and we're just starting to see some business come back. The Guam International Raceway is a community park that we can all, and all should be, tremendously proud of. Some parks have baseball and soccer fields. Ours has off-roaders, adventure racers, drag racers, concerts, car shows, corporate events, tourists, and families. We all share this facility. It truly is unique, safe, and fun place to play and learn. And we need more parks in our lives, not less. And tourists need more things to do, not less. The Guam, it's become a tourist attraction in the 10 years that we've been there. We started with 2 employees 10 years ago, and I've watched. I don't know anything about the extraction, and I can't answer any questions about the minerals in the coral, but I do know the hard work that goes into the events that Guam Racing has put on over the years, because I always get a call about, like, can we donate vehicles and manpower and things like that. These events they're not money makers, and I know the hard work and volunteer efforts that go into making them happen, and a lot of it is 2 or 3 or 4 guys that help make these things happen for the community. On Sundays, when everybody's out there and the families are out there, and you see 3 generations of racers, it just is like, it's such a neat thing. And we always say Guam Racing, but we're not racing with tourists out there. We probably go slower than anyone on the property. And I think the racers look at us sometimes and kind of chuckle, because the experiences we give and the experiences that we give people are designed around safety and the beauty of that property. It's just a great place, and so I'm very passionate about it. We're more than a tourism business. We're a family business, and we support 14 families with our business there. So I really appreciate all the time. Appreciate being allowed to talk today. The Raceway Park is built, and it's pretty good. I know that the Guam Racing Federation wants to make it better, and they've used the revenues to try and make it better over the years. But it's already built, and it's good, and it's being used. And I appreciate, the testimony from Director Tyron and the CLTC commissioners, and I would want her, looking after all these leases. I really do appreciate what you are trying to do, and I guess I'm just here to say that I think there's a way forward. Everybody wants to save the save the race park, and it was a good idea then, and it's a good idea now, and please find a way forward, and please don't kick us out. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Nelson? Tony Sablan?
Afternoon, Madam Speaker and Senators. One question that I need to ask is the sponsors of the bill, there are 4 senators. And Senator Nicolas, being a retired chief of criminal investigation, I got his answer. But the others, I would like to ask if they ever attended the CHAMORRO Land Trust Commission meetings, especially have they ever talked to the commission members as to what is the future plan of the property? Because everybody's talking, save the racetrack, save the racetrack. You talk to the CHAMORRO Land Trust, and they wanted a racetrack. It's just they want a different operator. They want they could make money out of, not somebody that is depleting the mineral, and they're not getting what they feel their fair share out of it. Thank you all for being here. I am Antonio Sablan. I am the Magalahi of the Nacion Chamorro. So if anybody is radical, I outdo everyone. Okay. Let me point out a few things. As I was reading a stack of papers, I came across the management of Parks and Rec. And they don't want the place. They just said, leave it up to CHAMORRO Land Trust. I'll tell you what CHAMORRO Land Trust, Parks and Rec. For a while now, we haven't done it, but as a member of the Chamorro Nation, we were cleaning up Angel Santos Park. We were going there, bush cutting, collecting all the mess voluntarily. Why? Parks and Recreation doesn't have the resources to take care of the place. What are we doing now? Trying to send the racetrack to them? Are we giving them an extra $1 million a year to do management, proper management of it? You know, obviously, we're just talking out of our butt, not so much saying it in our head. Please, por favor, think twice before taking Chamorro land and putting it into other uses. Keep it under Chamorro Land Trust. In the future, if they should stop their needs for a racetrack, I propose, to be honest, if I'm in charge of this property, I would build a PUD, for example, of course, with your approval. And that is, you know, like somebody mentioned earlier, a gas station. What about on the other side? There's some sort of a shopping center or something. And also a place for people to live in and meet the demands of the purpose of the law of the Chamorro Land Trust. But everyone is talking, save the park, save the park. The Chamorro Land Trust commissioners are not taking it away, and they're not closing it down. They're just closing it down from the current operator. They have an agreement, and they are claiming that they're not getting their fair share. You know, it's kind of curious because I see the magnitude of what was extracted from the YIGO Raceway Park. And I'll tell you a little story. Is that I'm a member of my family, the Otero family. We own Oruno Beach property. And a couple of my cousins have entered into a contract with this Korean organization. And when those guys, I was once upon a time sued by the U.S. military for $250,000 because I made a road into my family's property. And they years later, they want to be part of it because that consent decree that I conclude my case with gave me also a commercial activity on my family's property. They wanted to hop in and be part of that commercial activity, and the court obviously shut them down because they said, if you want commercial activity, you're not going to piggyback on Tony Sablan's case, sue the federal government yourself. And they all know that it's going to cost them tens of millions of dollars to win. But on that 30 acres that we're talking about, and they cut already the cliff lines and everything, on their case, when they were trying to piggyback on my case, this company said that they're going to make $7 million out of that 30 acres. So we're talking here about 256 acres, and they're losing money. I really, really wonder, where are all the rocks going to? I do understand that it takes processing and stuff like that to get finished product, but there's still a lot of mineral that's being extracted from the property. And there's still many, many, many more. On John P. Dwayne's testimony, he said that they're his business, now Dwayne and Camacho, since 1999, and he questioned how it felt to include mineral extraction, because all through his involvement, there was no talk about mineral extraction. I like to applaud the commissioners of the Chamorro Land Trust, because they did an excellent presentation. I'm really proud of them. Those guys are prepared. They know what they're talking about. And of course, they also support to continue on with the racetrack. We're not trying to eliminate, they're not trying to eliminate a place for safety and a place for recreation for our people and also visitors. But we kept talking about save the racetrack, and take it away from the Chamorro Land Trust Commission and put it over at Parks and Rec. Why is that a piece of conversation? Because I don't hear anything about the Chamorro Land Trust saying they want to close down the racetrack. Senator Nelson wrote a nice piece suggesting that there is estimate the minerals that are there before and after their extraction. I suggest each and every of these senators to read Pica Feherans, the former chairwoman of the Chamorro Land Trust Commission. She made an excellent point, and it's something worthwhile reading. Other than that, you know, they need a school. Let's take it away from the Chamorro Land Trust. What the heck? You're educating everybody, Tom, Dick, and Harry that came to Guam, and you have to take Chamorro land to educate them, make it available? Why doesn't the government of Guam take tax dollars, buy land, and put it for school use? Don't take it away from the Chamorro, because that's easier and cheaper. That's not right. The other thing too is that, you know, if this racetrack starts making good money, it's also a possibility that, hey, like the American Indians, they opened their casinos back in the States, and the outside non-Indian people are getting mad at them because the Indians use their profit from the casino to buy more land on the outside. So there's more land for them. Maybe the Chamorro Land Trust could do such process, and obviously it takes your help, senators, to make this possible, as to give them the flexibility to do what is needed to be done. I serve with the Ancestral Land Commission with Ron Laguardia, and I'm always proud of Ron. Senators, I'm also proud of you guys, Si Jus Masi, and thank you for listening. Thank you for giving us this opportunity. Esta.
Sizus Masi Sanjat Sablan. Former Senator and Attorney Randy Cunliffe.
Good afternoon, Madam Speaker and Senators. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to testify today. I've been involved in sports on Guam for over 45 years. Number of sports, a number of different organizations. In the 1990s, the Guam legislature took some land from the CHAMORRO Land Trust and placed it in Parks and Recreation to create the Dedido Sports Complex. It's run by Parks and Recreation. The money that is made at the Dedido Sports Complex is almost nothing. Parks and Recreation runs the Paseo. The money they make at the Paseo is almost nothing. These are about community benefits. The racetrack started over 25 years ago thanks to Senator Casper Bauer. They've spent years of toil, created very functional things that are used by old and young, and older. And, you know, I broke my shoulder probably 35 years ago on a dirt bike and haven't been on one since. But I do go out. I used to go down to the Cross Island Road and watch the races. I go up to watch the races here. There's a facility that exists, and I've heard the senators saying, you know, we don't want to take away the racetrack. There's a question about who's running it. I mean, you can't take away the racetrack. I mean, the community needs it. And say, well, build it somewhere else. Well, why take all the money that's been put into this and then make it a housing project and start all over again? It makes no sense. There's questions that have arisen. There's questions that have arisen everywhere on this island for all the times I've been here. People have problems. I know all about the CHAMORRO Land Trust. I've been involved with the CHAMORRO Land Trust. They've gone through hell and high water for all the years that they've been trying to get things done. They're never popular. People go in and yell and scream because they can't get water, they can't get access, they can't get power, they can't get a loan. You know, the CHAMORRO Land Trust leases require them to get permission and approval for anything they construct on a CHAMORRO Land Trust property. It's never happened. I don't think the CHAMORRO Land Trust has ever approved any house that's been built on any CHAMORRO Trust land. They're all in violation of the leases. And maybe that shouldn't have been in the lease to begin with, but it is. You know, so, I mean, there's problems that they have. But running, being a lessee of a community benefit property is not in the mission statement of the CHAMORRO Land Trust. They need money. Everybody knows they need money, and according to Mr. Berger, I guess they've made $3.6 million out of this project, building of this racetrack. So, you know, the situation is such that the community benefits from it. I think Senator Casper Bauer was talking about all of the people who came down for the racetrack. While we try to diversify how we make money on this island and how we grow the economy, tourism and the military are still the two things that really make this island economically feasible. And, you know, the Japanese, I think they had 30-some teams that came down and participated in the Smoking Wheels. That's shipping in vehicles, bringing in mechanics and drivers and crew members and everybody else, staying in hotels when we're just coming out of the pandemic and not many tourists are coming. So that helps the economy. But the reason I was asked to come here is because I've been involved in some of the ideas that the racetrack has had and how they go about it and how they move things along. And the issue that really occurred is when the legislature passed legislation that said they could get and perhaps enter into a 50-year lease. And negotiations became underway, and the Chamorro Land Trust has so many things to do. This was not on a front burner. And there was only, I think, a 6 months time frame for the get a lease agreement back in 2017, 2018. And so Henry came to see me, and I prepared a proposed lease because he said they won't even give us something to work with. And I used the template this legislature had approved for the Dededo Sports Complex for the Guam Football Association. And we get the legislation, and we took what the legislature said had to be in the lease, and we put that in the lease. And we submitted it to the Chamorro Land Trust, and they didn't do anything. And the 6 months expired, and they got an extension, and the Chamorro Land Trust just had so many other things to do, they never got to this. And it just died, and then we're now in a month-to-month situation. And then it came to the point where they said they were going to evict everybody. And so, the situation was, because of the mission statement of Chamorro Land Trust, this is not something that they really need or care about. I don't think they really need or care about the golf course. I mean, I don't know if any of you play golf, but it's a nice layout, but they don't put any money into it. They don't take care of it. They don't do, and not the Chamorro Land Trust, but the lessees. And so it doesn't get much play. And it's cheap for the locals because of the Chamorro Land Trust. And so, they try to go out there, but they just don't maintain it. And it's been a problem for everybody. So the idea of this going to the Parks and Rec, I thought of because that's what the legislature did with the land that they did for the Dededo Sports Complex. Now I hear today some testimony that there may have been 620 acres set aside in Santa Rita in Parks and Recreation for a racetrack. Well, so it's not a new idea. If that land is available, why don't you take it out of the Parks and Recreation and give it to Chamorro Land Trust? And then take this one and give it to the Parks and Rec so that they can, get in a lease. And I understand the speaker has said, there's not this in the legislation, there's not that in the legislation, and I understand that the author of it is saying, well, it's going to get to the floor and we'll fill in the blanks and get what everybody thinks should be in there so that it can be taken care of, as often happens with legislation when it hits the floor. So, I would like to see the racetrack maintained. I think Senator Limtiaco hit the nail on the head. None of these are going to ever make money. How many groups are going to come forward and offer to run the racetrack? I mean, this has all been done by Joey, Henry, a few of these guys have been around forever. And I mean, I remember seeing Joey, I laughed because he was a little skinny little kid riding a motorcycle, But saving the racetrack in its location is necessary. I mean, it doesn't make any financial sense to say, okay, we'll let you have a racetrack, but move it somewhere else and spend the millions and millions of dollars you've already spent to create it and all the years it's taken to get it to the level it is right now. And I understand, there's issues and questions, and I think that those issues and questions clearly can be solved. I mean, they go back, apparently, Mr. Johnson said they haven't really taken any grading or anything since 2016. So the issues that may be being brought up are things that happened many, many years ago, and they were not an issue with Chamorro Land Trust at the time, and now they're an issue that says, well, we're going to evict you because of these things that are 10 years old that you didn't do. So I would just ask the legislature to, follow through and support this bill and make the amendments that you need to make so that the lease can go through. But sporting facilities never make money, But you see cities like Las Vegas, who's just agreed to put, I don't know, $200 million or $300 million to build a baseball stadium so that they can bring the Oakland athletics there, and that's the community money. You know, so I mean, they'll get somebody to say, well, I'll sponsor it and I'll give you so much money to put my name on that stadium. But it's a community benefit, and I appreciate that, Senator, very much, because at a day and an age where our kids are sitting on the couch or our grandkids are sitting on the couch playing with various electronic devices, these people are taking their kids out, getting them to do things, getting them exercise, getting them off the couch, getting them to learn things, be responsible for taking care of their motorcycles when they come home, and take care of their father's bruises and aches and pains when they get home, and bring the community closer together. So I really would ask you to throw your support behind this bill and make whatever changes you need and think need to be made. But don't close this down. And I know that Henry's in the past said he would be glad to step away. Unfortunately, there's nobody else willing to really step up and do it. So, and he's getting to be, he's older than me, and that's saying a lot. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Senator Cunliffe. Henry Simpson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And Senators, thank you for allowing us to be here today to go over this. I hope to be able to clear a lot of the questions that have been brought up. But one of the first things I want to say is I wish that area was red dirt, because we'd be done. We would be finished. If that 1.5 miles away from us is Mount Santa Rosa, all red dirt. Had that red dirt been on that piece of property, the track would be finished, we'd be done, things would be over. We actually have had a really hard time with what they call good rock, because it's hard. You can't grade it with a bulldozer. It has to be blasted. You can't shape it. You can't do anything with it. It is a pain. I put in a small chart here in the Smoking Wheels brochure. I don't know if you guys got it. It's got the amounts of money that we paid into the CHAMORRO Land Trust. But what I wanted to point out was that we didn't have very much interest in that rock for the first 6 years. It wasn't anything anybody wanted. Only Perez Brothers was able to come out and do anything, and they didn't do any blasting. They didn't have the equipment. Shortly after we got the lease, 9/11 happened. And in the course of 9/11, the price of getting a blasting license, it was what Perez was going to do, went from approximately, they told me, $50,000 to $500,000. So you couldn't get blasting equipment and blasting licenses to be able to handle that hard rock. And so they brought a machine in, a Vermeer machine that was like a ditch digger, but it was wide and should be able to chew up the coral. And that rock is so hard, it ruined that $500,000 machine, and it's still parked there someplace and is unusable. It wasn't until 2005 when Hawaiian Rock saw a market for some of the hard rock. They got some, I guess they got jobs, they needed it for the aggregate, but that's when it started, and that was in 2005. So I wanted to point that out while I was there. We wish it was red dirt. We could have bulldozed it, our track could be laid out, and we'd be done. But I want to read my testimony for you, please. Updated Speaker Terlaje, Senators and staff of the 37th Guam Legislature, Commissioners of the CHAMORRO Land Trust, and members of the public. I'm here to testify in favor of Bill number 5637 and to thank its sponsoring senators, Dwayne San Nicolas, Joe S. and Agustin, William Parkinson, and Roy Quinata. I would like to thank Senator Larry Kasperbauer for introducing the enabling legislation for the Guam International Raceway, and George Flores, who found the property and convinced me that a track could be built there. As general manager of the Guam Racing Federation, I had a pretty good relationship with the CHAMORRO Land Trust Commission for the first 20 years. There were many different directors, board members, but most were helpful and really wanted to see the track become successful. If there were any problems, we would work together to solve them. If we couldn't, the answer usually was, you have to take that up with the legislature. When the track property was chosen to be part of the firing range in 2007, all construction stopped. And in that folder, I give you two as a picture of the firing range. We got this picture. So the firing range completely covered the whole racetrack property. And there was basically nothing we could do with the property except wait to find out what was going to happen. So when the record of decision, or when they chose the property, they started doing surveys for plants, surveys for animals. One thing they didn't survey was public use of the property, but anyway, they had that for quite a while, and we couldn't really do anything. But so when the track was chosen to be part of the firing range, all construction stopped as we looked for a new home for the track and tried to figure out the logistics of where we were going to go and who was going to pay for it. It took about a year for us to figure out that there were no plans for us and that all the compensation for the track area was to be paid to the government of Guam, and were no plans for the track to be built elsewhere. And we were told by many people in this planning process, there's billions of dollars here for this firing range. They will take care of your track. They'll find a place for you. They'll build the track for you. Do all this, just help us move forward. And in the document that was about that thick, we found out that there wasn't any plans, and all they were going to do was pay the government of Guam, and then it was up to us to go and find another place. So for about that first couple of years, we looked everywhere for some place that we could have this multi-purpose racetrack, someplace where we could have a Grand Prix course, where we could have our drag strip, we could have our off-road track, our motocross track, all the different racing configurations that various people in Guam had been enjoying for a long time, but had been in different areas. So there wasn't one to be had. We went to Dandan, we went to Palantat, we went to Bubulao, we went to all the different areas that had open areas, and there weren't any areas available. And that's when George Flores, who had been the president of the Off-Road Racing Association before, said, let's go look at this. We can maybe make this work. We became very vocal advocates of the military not acquiring any new property and instead utilizing property they already had. We raised 13,000 signatures in 30 days and helped stop the firing range from being built at Pagat. The firing range controversy continued over 7 years. We couldn't build anything during that time, but we could grade the property to the finished elevations needed to build the track to the specifications called for by the track's designer. The firing range process took us until late 2015. Once a record of decision was signed, we applied for and were given a grading permit for the western side of the temporary drag strip. It took 2 years to get the permit because new endangered species had been added to the list of plants and animals on lot 7161R1. For example, the fatting tree and the Mariana's 8-spot butterfly. Those were not on the list when we first started and our license in 1998. That process took up to 2018 and the end of our license period. We had always been told that when the time came, we could have a long-term 50-year lease so that that interested people could invest in things like gas stations, tour rentals, driving schools to help defray the cost and help build a track to the ultimate goal of a Guam Grand Prix. And I have this letter from the track designer, but I don't have it with me. I apologize for that. But the guy that designed our Formula 3 track built tracks in China, Adelaide, Kuala Lumpur, and he thought our Guam track, our layout, would be absolutely one of the most gorgeous and well-received on television racetracks that he'd ever seen, because with the ocean in the background, the jungle on the side, and the ups and downs of our racetrack, he really thought it was great. So we were given the opportunity with Bill 34234, authored by Senator Quinata. It gave the Chamorro Land Trust Commission 180 days to draft a 50-year lease and send it to the legislature for approval. And that's when I went to Randy and asked him to help me get this lease going. And what we ran into was that there was already a plan in place for a 5-year lease, and 10% of the value of the property was the yearly rental. But that was for a commercial lease, and we were not a commercial enterprise. We are a public, we consider ourselves a public-private partnership where we're doing private racing and stuff on public property and working together for the good of the community. So the lease was never sent down to the legislature for approval. So we kept trying, but it didn't get done. And so the Land Trust did not fulfill its duty to provide a lease for us. As per the license agreement from 2001 to 2022, the Chamorro Land Trust Commission has been paid a total of $3,599,907.74, $932,470 in rent, and $2,667,437.22 in royalties directly from Hawaiian Rock, Perez Brothers, and Smithbridge. And that's what this sheet is. And I've given this to the public auditors. I've given our tax returns to the public auditors. I've given our audited financial statements to the public auditors. And I've offered to have them come out to the racetrack and go over everything that we've done over there so you can see why we did what we did with that property. I'd like to invite this committee to come to the racetrack, maybe for an informational meeting. And I can explain the clips that you see. I can explain whatever else somebody might question at the racetrack, because it's done for a purpose. It wasn't done for mining. It wasn't done for mineral extraction. It wasn't done for any other purpose but to build a racetrack. And we can explain that. I'd like to have you all come out there. at any time that you've got the time, I would like to do that. So the other reasons are, I took some quotes from the newspaper because the attorney for the Chamorro Land Trust at the time, Nicolas spoke more to the press than he did to me. And he said, during a CLTC meeting on January 19, 2023, then legal counsel Nicolas provided several possible reasons for eviction. He cited the lease agreement, which he alleged was born out of requests by members of the racing community at a public hearing, incited senators at the time to pass a bill that Toft called unworkable. So 4 years ago, when we were given our 50-year lease, the Chamorro Land Trust and their attorney said, we don't like that bill. We're not going to work with it. We're not going to give you that lease. They paraded 100 people around the legislative hearing hall in support of the commercial lease, and it wasn't a commercial lease. And then they passed a bill that is completely unworkable and send it to us, and we look like we can't do anything because there's a bill that the Raceway is unwilling to sign, we're unwilling to sign, and we're back to square one. So this whole thing really kind of came apart in trying to get a long-term lease that we've been waiting on for quite some time. And it kind of boils down to this. It boils down to this quote: CLTC has been put in as the steward of these leases, and it's kind of a difficult position for us because the board is not supposed to be doing things for the entirety of Guam, Toft said. It is this attitude about our members and the hearing for the 50-year lease, and this is why Bill number 5637 is the best for all the people of Guam, not just a few. Today we have several hundred track users who want you all to know how much they enjoy the Guam International Raceway Park. They are not trying to incite any senators. They just want you to know that they support Bill number 5637. We also have approximately 6,000 people who have signed a petition to save the track and want to vote for those who support the track and vote for Bill number 5637. Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Simpson. Mr. Cruz.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and Senators. You know, I stood before you guys in this hearing hall before on other laws that sometimes were passed in haste and had issues that weren't addressed, or maybe the senators took our recommendations as professionals on the island and didn't quite follow what we were suggesting. And so this whole thing seems to be a misconception to me that maybe there's a misunderstanding. Let me give you a short history of where this started. I teamed up with Henry and George and them for the YIGO property after we had a lot of deaths on Guam from drag racing, Harmon Field and other places. And so Albert Pobletti and I had talked with then Governor Ricardo Berdallo and Madeline Berdallo, and we convinced them, let's show you what kind of support we got. And we closed down Marine Drive. We had the Marine Drive drags. We even got the head of the Catholic community to authorize us and give us his blessings. And it was even on a Sunday, right during church. But anyway, to make a long story short, that's what started this. As a young boy, I know the property very well because my great-grandfather's brother was the only one that had interest in that property. He had goats. We used to try to farm. It's funny because he would make, out of the little fissures in one of those rocks, he would make a planter and he would grow flowers. And we would grow something just to prove to the point that You can grow something out of anywhere, you know, even in the desert. So I know how rough that property is. When Henry first took me out there, I told him he was crazy. He says, well, you could build a drag strip here. I said, Henry, I need half-mile of straight, level property that's solid that I can build a drag strip. And so we had to brainstorm, try to figure out how we were going to manipulate the economy to foster building a drag strip. Drag strip, you know, Henry talks about topsoil. Let me tell you, I can't build a drag strip on topsoil because the material, as it gets moisture and then gets dry again, it starts moving. And everybody knows that a drag strip's got to be flat and level. Well, let me tell you, I wanted to answer one of your questions. You talk about that big cliff. You talk about the end of the drag strip, how that's kind of like the ramp that goes, so the drag cars that are really fast can jump all the way to Rhoda, or at least land on the downhill at Santa Rosa. How that thing became to be a little bit of an uphill grade was that I visited NHRA, which is the national sanctioning body that governs drag racing in the United States, and now it's all over the world, but they told me I needed a complete half mile. Well, we didn't have that much property there. So Henry said, well, let's use that area. It's supposed to be the entrance to the Raceway Park, and we're going to build a building there that we can cut later on, come back and cut this out. But I said, Henry, I still need a half mile. He says, okay, let's sit down and think about it. I said, well, you know, there's some drag strips in the States that have an uphill at the end, and that provides a natural gravitational deal for you know, slowing cars down. So that's what we did, and that's why you see, if you really sit there and look, that thing goes uphill. Part of that is not natural. We put material in there that we had graded to level out the first part of the area because you know, we needed a naturally flat place, and we also needed an area that was conducive towards pavement. Going back to where Jer Johnson and Henry were talking about aggregate, as you see in some places in Guam on the highways, all of a sudden you'll see a natural bump form in the middle of the roadway. Well, what that is you've got some kind of hard surface underneath, and then you've got these soft surfaces, and as those soft material moves, then it starts shifting the pavement, and that's part of what you see. We can't build a drag strip on that. Every one of those little bumps is going to bring the car airborne, and if you've ever seen a drag car get a little bit of air underneath it, it flips end over end like a hydroplane boat. So some of these areas where they remove what I call armor rock, which is the hardest rock that I've known, Henry can attest to that. Perez Brothers went in with a machine designed by the smartest engineers at Vermeer, and within 15 minutes of their introduction to show all the other contractors what they could do, they broke all the cutting teeth off it. And then they backed it up because they had a problem underneath, so they took the belly pan off and they backed it up and they rammed the oil pan against the rock, and there went the machine. It was worthless. $500,000 down the drain. Actually, it was more than that because I heard the shipping and everything. It was almost $1 million. But anyway, to make a long story short, the only material at that quarry, which you guys call a quarry, worth anything, has a value, is that armor rock. That armor rock is harder than even the basalt we used to use on asphalt, non-skid surfaces. At one time, we were even looking at glass. Glass is harder than some of the rock on island, the limestone. But armor rock, technically, is harder than that. I've seen it puncture tires. I've seen it go through things that it's not supposed to do. But anyway, as you remove that armor rock, sometimes you'll get undesirable material loaded in the truck. So it goes to the quarry, they screen it, they take the undesirable material and they bring it back. So that's what everybody sees as, oh, they're bringing in backfill. They're, you know, but actually some of that material is really good for a base. So when you talk about over digging 6 feet, that's nothing. Imagine your sewer lines, your utility lines, the road surface areas. We need that soft material because you can't cut a trench through armor rock unless you've got, you know, some miraculous machine that we haven't even invented yet. But anyway, to make a long story short, that's the reason why they underdug 6 feet. And then they put the material back, and these smart engineers are smart enough that they figure if they did the whole area and something were ever to happen to the racetrack, or Lord help us, the governor wants to build a medical facility there, and we've got to build basements and infrastructure and whatever, they would save a lot of money by not having to go through that armor rock. So there's a plus, you know, to everything. There's a positive side. And when we created this law that created the racetrack, I remember sitting down with Henry. I remember sitting down with Senator Kasperbauer, and I said, guys, it's not going to fly. It's too perfect. By perfect, I mean by design, everything was supposed to fall in place, including the economy. At the time that we were putting this together, there was still a construction economy. There was still a good tourism economy. We didn't know that construction was going to fall flat on its face. And so there was a soft spot in the economy there, and we couldn't convince the contractors that they needed to process this rock and keep a big supply. So when that day came for construction, they could crush this rock and make base cores or whatever they wanted to make that they needed that hard rock. I was one of the contractors that did the Anderson Air Force Base new runways, and that rock was very vital to that. As everybody knows, you get a 300-ton plane landing on a runway, you can't afford to have any kind of soft spots. Anyway, to make a long story short, so we had all this rock, couldn't do anything, couldn't sell it, nobody wanted it, but we had the law in place that says, well, you got this many years, you could have built a track. Well, then all of a sudden, we get the military buildup, but everybody wants to work on the bases because that's where the money's at, it's for profit. There's no profit in taking the rock and quarrying it and storing it. So nobody wanted to apply the tax credits to help us build the track. I ran the drag strip for 12 years. So let me tell you, I was scared to death because when we first went around and saw the illegal drag racing, I in fact took a Superior Court justice with me to Two Lovers Point and in Iran and some of these places, and she was amazed how many people wanted to risk their licenses and risk their, you know, their rap sheet, so to say, by drag racing. But anyway, to get to the end of that, she told me, she says, whatever you do not give up. If you can save one life, it's worth it. So that's how we formed that, you know, and to convince Henry there was a need, he had just put a brand new parking lot next to the dirt oval. And one Sunday, I snuck over there with the boys and we were drag racing across it. And he calls me up on the phone and he says, you're going to kill somebody. What are you doing? I said, no, Henry, trust me. This is just it's going to steamroll the interest in building a true drag strip. And that's what we did. We used a temporary roadway into the parking lot to build a drag strip, and it's still there. You know, we've never completed the construction for the Formula 3 track or the main drag strip. I had gone to NHRA, had gone to all the racing organizations, and at the time, Hawaii had a problem, much like we do. The people thought, why do we want a racetrack on Oahu? There's better uses for that property. Developers were coming in. You know, Ms. Tyrone says, oh yeah, there might be other people interested in it. There were a lot of developers that wanted that property. They put out an RFP and everybody was scratching their head. I spoke in front of the Honolulu, you know, their governing body, and I said to them, I said, you know, you got to think of it this way. There's more than just the value of the property that's appraised. There's an aesthetic value, there's a value to the community, there's a value to recreation, and there's also value to the military population. When I ran the drag strip in 2005, it got so much interest and we had so much of the military community here. Stars and Stripes did a huge story on it. And it wasn't just for our area. They had put it in different places because they were having trouble getting people to choose Guam as their duty station. So they thought it was a value to have a racetrack here. And that had just really knock my socks off, actually. But we have to think of what we're going to lose if we lose the racetrack. Now, I've come up with some lame brain calculations and stuff over the years, and I was the guy that came up with a plan to take part of Pocket, cut it down, and sell the rock, and build a penitentiary. You'd have a natural boundary on the sides where you didn't have to put a fence up. You would sell the rock. You guys say it's worth millions of dollars. Well, there's part of the money to fund it. One time, Mr. Simpson and I had talked about a friend of ours, Terry Hunt, and a couple other guys. We talked about building a general aviation airport there because the nuisance of having a drag strip with noise and a racetrack with noise next to a penitentiary or next to a runway, an airport, wouldn't be a problem. So that kind of was a very interesting thing, and we had a lot of interest in it, except for the fact that 9/11 showed up and kind of screwed everything up. I sold my airplane that used to be up at NAS Agania because of the 9/11 and all the things that happened when GIA took over, and cost of insurance, and of course we had typhoons and everything else. There was no place to hangar the plane. But the thing that I see is that something that's a project like the racetrack, and I could even see some of that happening in the medical facility the governor did. You're always going to get people to have questions. You're going to have people that are highly critical of things. You know, they're going to say, oh man, Mr. Simpson made $1 million off the quarry. Let me tell you something. The only people that make money off quarrying or the racetrack are the community. The commercial businesses, the other people that are looking for things to have recreation. There are developers that want to develop, we've had all these music groups come through. We've had singing stars and whatever rent the track, and all that money goes in our economy. I wrote the check for the first 5 or 6 years while they were trying to figure out where to get dirt. I wrote the check because we made so much money at the drag strip. Circle K76, which is SPPC, ran a store at a drag strip. Let me tell you, they made a lot of money. We didn't, but they would feed us at the end of the night. So my guys liked that. There were a lot of things that they sponsored, they took care of. We had MMA there. We had, go-go girls. We had all kinds of stuff, I think we at one time even had a small bingo tryout. They wanted to try and see if bingo was there. We had a swap meet. We got the mayor YIGO. We tried to do, kind of like a farmer's market, but it didn't pan out because not too many people knew where the racetrack was. We didn't have the notoriety yet. But what I'm saying is that me personally, and my friends here will probably shoot me in the back when we leave here. Me personally, I think CLTC should listen to what we're saying, sit down at the table with us, and figure out how we're both going to benefit. Because if we don't, we're all going to lose. I love Parks and Rec. They couldn't even take care of the JFK statue park. And I got investors and people, alumni, to buy that statue and put it there. So if you're wondering why the fence goes around it and it's outside the fence, that's why. But Parks and Rec has not worked one day to take care of that park. It's all the alumni people that have worked to keep it clean, to keep it maintained. And, like everything in Guam, I'd hate to see this park go downhill and then turned over to an organization or an agency or even a developer that will let it dilapidate and just milk whatever they can out of it and, not get the funding that it deserves. We spend a lot of time there. Volunteers, if you count the time that they contribute, is worth millions. That's where the wealth is at.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Cruz. You. All right, Senators, I have 3 more. I know we have questions for this panel. There are 3 more to testify, though. I could get your indulgence to allow them to testify before we question the panel. If I could ask the last three, Ms. Conker, if you could come to the side, and Mr. Conker, and there was one more. Sorry, I lost the paper right now. One more. Packard or something? Please don't leave, the panel members. If you could stay, I'd appreciate it. Robert Bukhar. All right. Ms. Conker, you may proceed.
Half a day. My name is Tina
Mr.
Conker.
Cunliffe, would you be able to stay? Could you please ask Mr. Cunliffe if he would be able to stay? Could you please ask Mr. Cunliffe if he would be able to stay? Thank you. Please proceed. My apologies.
Half a day. My name is Tina Conker, and I am a drag racer, and I'm here with my son, Orion. We've been helping at the drag strip side. We are volunteers. My son is 17, so we've been racing at that track for maybe about 19 years. I was pregnant with him while I was racing. I remember Mr. Ed Cruz had to ask me to stop racing because I was 8 months pregnant. And now my son is racing the same race truck I raced with him when I was pregnant with him. We're here today to support the bill 56-37. I've heard Ms. Alicia Tyron mention that they're not going to take away the racetrack. So I hope what she says, she abides by what she says. We have 728 drag race vehicles registered at that racetrack. So that's 728 I'm going to call them motorheads, and we're part of it. Like I said, my son's 17. He's not in the village causing chaos. Whenever he gets allowance, he puts it towards his race truck. So, to see a 17-year-old, be good, and all he's concerned about is, Mom, where are we going to race if they close down this racetrack? But to hear them say that they don't want to close it down, it kind of gives us hope. But, everyone can say anything they want sitting here, but we're here to support, just to keep that racetrack open. I don't want to leash 728 race vehicles out on the streets. So that's what we're all going to have to deal with. And, 17 years, he's been racing for 7 years? 7 years. He's learned how to drive at that track, right? So he grew up there, and I just want, there's maybe about 4 more teenagers racing there. The youngest we have, she started racing when she was 14, and she actually has the fastest time at that racetrack. And she was here today, but they had to leave, so I speak in behalf of all the drag racers is please don't take away our track. That's the only place we have. You don't want to see us out in the streets, Kay. We want to keep it safe, and it is safe. That track is safe. I trust my son racing on that track. We've raced on that track for so many years. That track is safe. We make sure safety is our priority. And I speak for that because, like I said, we help run the drag race side. So safety is our priority. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Conker. Mr. Conker? That was Tina Conker. This is Orion Conker.
My name is Orion Conker, and for most of my life, I have been at that racetrack and enjoyed racing and watching racing, and I always help my dad when he needs help with our race truck or with anything else. To me, that racetrack is a family thing, and I go there a lot with my family and make a lot of new friends and new family as well. That is all.
Thank you so much, Mr. Conker. Mr. Bukhar?
Name's Bob Busick, Robert Busick. Hi, Chris. How you doing? Long time. I want to thank all the senators for being here. Even like to thank the CHAMORRO Land Trust. I know their hearts are in the right place. They're trying to do their job. They're trying to get the most they can get possibly from this piece of property. And, you know, perhaps the Guam Racing Federation does have a great deal out there, but I mean, we're a great benefit out there to the racetrack, to the community. Right now, as we speak, Guam Community College students are out there learning how to drive tractor trailers. You know, better the drivers are, the better trained they are, the more unlikely they are to have a head-on collision with your families. Your moms, your dads, your aunties are out there on the road with them. They're getting trained. GCC's out there training them. We have bus drivers out there training also from GCC. Right now, evicted and everything. We're out there. We're not leaving until we have to leave. Right now, we feel like we have a strong case, and the CHAMORRO Land Trust doesn't have the right to kick us out. Show us what we did wrong. You keep making all these accusations. Everybody's waiting for this audit to come out. It hasn't come out yet. We can't even get an extension until the audit comes out. That don't seem right. That's not fair. All the families out there want to save the racetrack. Treat them fairly. Let us continue. Let us go out there. Let our drag. Right now, you have 728 registered drag racers with nowhere to drag race other than the public roads. Why can't we just stay out there until you have the proof that you need to evict us? Please. I support Bill 5637. I think it's a park. It's a recreational park, so it should go to Parks and Recreation. Whether they're able to handle it or not, that's another issue altogether. That's something you guys need to address. The government needs to fix itself. We're not there to fix the government, but we'd like to get our park in the right organization. CHAMORRO Land Trust has a job to do, and I appreciate the job they do. I mean, they want to give landless people who are indigenous to the island property. I'm all for that. I like that idea. You know, help them. Help the people that need the help. That's their job. We shouldn't dislike them or hate them because they evicted us, but evict us for the right reasons. There's no reason to evict us yet that you have facts for. Do you? Do you have any facts? Is there anything out there that you can prove has been done illegally out there to give you the right to evict us, the CHAMORRO Land Trust to evict us? Not really, I don't think so. I mean, we do so many great things out there. You got the Guam Fire Department doing their evals, you got the police department doing their evals out there, making it safer for the community. Drag racers are drag racing safely out there, not on the public roads. It doesn't make any sense to evict us with no evidence, no proof, just accusations, just social media bull. Chris, you're out there. You were doing announcing for the event the other day, a few months back. You're having a great time. You see what it's all about. It's all safety. Get the dang helmets on. See me running around yelling and screaming. I unlock the track in the morning, and even though we're evicted, you want to arrest somebody for breaking in and entering, that's me. I unlock in the morning, I lock it up at night. When I leave here, I'm heading straight to the track. I'm going to make sure the GCC guys are all set and out of the place, and I secure the gates. If I find another padlock or chain on that gate tomorrow morning because somebody else put it up there, I'll cut it. Arrest me. Make me a martyr. Go ahead. This is our racetrack. You've already put all this effort, all this government money, taxpayer money has already gone into it to build it. Why do you want to evict us? You want to keep the racing going? Let the Guam Racing Federation continue to build the racetrack, to finish it, help it get through some of these hurdles, environmental hurdles, whatever they may be, so they can continue to finish it. It can't get finished because it seems like one little thing after another gets thrown in front of them to trip them up. You want to, CHAMORRO Land Trust, I know wants to get the most out of the value of the property. Guam Racing Federation has a great deal out there. And we want to continue to have a great deal out there because we can't afford anything else. Unless you're willing to give us another piece of property for free or make it all free. I mean, think about it. I'll take free if you're willing to supply it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Busick. And you did get free. The property belonged to the Chamorro Land Trust. It belonged to the people of Guam. And the Guam
are the
Raceway
people of
Federation
Guam. We are
got
the
the
people of
property.
Guam. We are the people of Guam.
Yes. But you're not the
What do
only
you think
people of
out
Guam,
there?
Mr. Busick.
What do you
My
think
turn
we're
to
doing
talk
out
now,
there?
right? And I want to make it very clear that we are here. The eviction was served on you, and the Chamorro Land Trust testified, and they listed, if you can get a copy of this resolution, they listed exactly what you're asking for. You want to know what the facts are? Those are the facts.
Those aren't facts. Those are accusations. Are they not? Are they facts?
They're facts. It's a fact
So without the
that
audit,
the Guam Raceway Federation.
So without the audit report,
Would you
you're
like me
saying
to
that,
talk?
that
Turn off his
material
microphone.
has been stolen
Mr.
out of there,
Mr.
raped.
Busick, I would like to talk. You came to testify. I listened to you. And I just want to make sure it's very clear to everyone who's listening who thinks that we are taking away something from them. The Guam Raceway Federation, unauthorized clearing of government of Guam-owned lots severely impacted the native limestone forest growing in these lots. The Guam Racing Federation and its contractors did not comply with backfilling, permitting requirements, and utilized imported materials for backfilling. This is the problem. They don't want to listen to the facts. The Guam Racing Federation and its contractors extracted minerals beyond the area allowed for clearing and grading, identified as Zone 1, Phase 5A, as approved by the Chamorro Land Trust Commission. Mining and excavating activity on the property is not consistent with operating a raceway park. That was the finding of the Department of Public Works, contrary to the Guam Land Use Commission's approval. I'm reading from a resolution. I'm not asking a question right now. The Chamorro Land Trust Commission has not issued any requests for proposals for mining or excavating activity on Lot 7161R1. When Mr. Cunliffe, former senator, I also believe he was a former attorney at one point for the Chamorro Land Trust, attorney now for the Guam Raceway Federation, in conjunction with Attorney Cook, who served notice on the Chamorro Land Trust Commission that he represents the Guam Raceway Federation and that they would not leave, or I guess that was you, Mr. Simpson, who said you would not leave the property on advice of your lawyers. I think it was very disingenuous and wrong, not accurate, to say that the Chamorro Land Trust was sitting around doing nothing, too busy, not interested in negotiating a lease. And the documents that are in these files show otherwise. And they show that, yes, you gave them a lease in June 2019 that was rejected by their council because it conflicted with the Public Law 34-142, which authorizes the 50-year lease, because it included mineral extractions. And for all of those racers out there who think the Chamorro Land Trust doesn't want racing, no, they wanted to comply with the law that said no more mineral extraction unless approved by the legislature. And according to the council, the proposed lease from the Guam Racing Federation was, would not be the 10% of the appraised value as the Chamorro Land Trust had agreed. And then there's records in the minutes of the Chamorro Land Trust providing its version of a lease to the Guam Racing Federation as well in 2020. So I just don't like it when people come in here and state the facts inaccurately, because we are trying to get to a solution, and we're never going to get there with false accusations and those kinds of things. And I wanted to ask you, Mr. Simpson, thank you for coming back up. This accounting that you showed us shows that from the years 2001 to 2018, the total cubic yards of minerals that were extraction was 4.4 million. And out of that, 2.2 million was paid to the Chamorro Land Trust. 2.2 million was also paid to the Guam Racing Federation, is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
What
And
we-
then from
what we-
2019 to 2022, the total cubic yards that were extracted was 3.6 million. And out of that, the Chamorro Land Trust received $465,000. And at that point, the Guam Racing Federation also received $465,000. Is that correct?
Yeah, the way it was set up was that we were supposed to receive all of the money and then write a check back to the Chamorro Land Trust. But to keep it clean and make sure that everything was done on time, we asked the contractors that were grading to make two checks.
Yeah, I understand
One to the
that.
Chamorro Land Trust and then one to the Racing Federation.
I understand that, and so that's why I'm asking you just to confirm. And so as I went over these numbers earlier, there is a 0.25 cent per cubic yard payment to the Chamorro Land Trust for the years 2000, well, for several years, and then it changed from 25 cents to 75 cents per cubic yard. And now here you say that at a certain point it went from 50 cents to $2 per cubic yard. When did that happen? When was it $2 per cubic yard?
The last few years, it's $2 a cubic yard. These prices have always been kind of set by the market and the Chamorro Land Trust. In the beginning, we would always ask them, what do you think the market price is for this excess material? Because it's their excess graded materials to sell, not ours.
Okay, and so all of that from 2019 to 2022 was after the license expired. That's 3.6 million cubic yards removed after the license expired. And if you divide what the payment was to CLTC,
That
it's
much.
about
That much. That's the. That is
13 cents per cubic yard.
I'm sorry.
I'll double check my math after this, but I
That's
just
a
received this now.
subtotal. Sorry.
No, yes, that's a subtotal from the time the lease license expired until 2022. Mineral extraction was still being done.
From the time the license expired, 400 and I think it's 462.
No, that's Smithbridge. It's 3.6 million cubic yards total material, unless this is wrong, and $465,000 paid to the Chamorro Land Trust. That's like 13 cents a cubic yard. Dedido Sports Complex, yeah, I think it's wrong. Dedido Sports Complex, lots of people were talking about that it makes no money, and so maybe the Chamorro Land Trust should make no money off of this raceway. Fine. That's not the deal you wanted. You wanted mineral extraction. That's the only reason we're here today trying to transfer this property to someplace else is because the Chamorro Land Trust was trying to follow the law.
These are excess graded materials, not mineral extraction.
When they built the Dedido Sports Complex, there was no quarrying. They got $1 million for the soccer field and tax credits. $1 million. I don't even think they used it all.
Yeah.
You got $8 million and used almost all of it. All of it was used. That means that people of Guam paid to build this raceway.
Through the tax credits, yes.
That's correct.
Could I ask?
And we gave up money going to GDOE to pay for the raceway.
Yeah. Could I ask that the letter from our engineers be read into the record at this time?
We have a lot of letters that have been requested to be read into the record. There are several of them.
I've got it right here.
The reason I haven't is because there's so many people waiting, and I'd like to ask you some questions, Mr. Simpson.
Okay.
We have a letter. You're right. We have written letters from Dwayne and Associates, who
Yes.
represents Guam Raceway Federation, in front of the Chamorro Land Trust, in front of the Guam Land Use Commission.
Yep.
We also have letters from Pika Farron, who's the former chairperson of the Chamorro Land Trust, attesting to her work in trying to get this lease done. We also have testimony from many others. I might have, there's many. Ted Nelson, others.
I like the idea of trading whatever that land was in Agate for the
Yes.
for the
That land was
racetrack.
available before you entered into a lease with the Chamorro Land
It's
Trust.
not-
It was
it-
available for years prior to that.
It's not.
That's
It
not
won't
the
work for a
land.
drag strip. It won't.
Right.
You can't build a
And
drag
there's
strip on it.
no quarrying materials there to be sold.
We don't want quarrying materials. We want red dirt.
If
Actually,
you
my
didn't
part
want
of it's
quarrying materials, then we would have a lease right now with the Guam Raceway Federation because we authorized a 50-year lease without any mineral extraction.
we have to grade the property.
With dynamite,
I'm sorry.
blasting,
Yes, yes. This, if you look at this, this section right down to the center here. If you look at that on a coastal geodetic survey map, it's called the Santa Rosa Ridge. So Mount Santa Rosa is right there, and this ridge continues from over by Pagat all the way to Mount Santa Rosa. On the ocean side of this, the water that falls there goes down into the ocean caves, Pagat Cave, Marble Cave, caves along the ocean. On the other side, the Route 15 side, is where the wells are for the northern aquifer part of the island. But that ridge is underground, and that's why it's so hard, and why it's, you know, we weren't happy that it was there, but we didn't have a lot of choice, so.
Thank you, Mr. Simpson. Yeah, I'm not making this up. This is from the Department of Public Works, who denied renewal of a permit for grading because the grading permit expired, because the conditional approval under the Department of Land Management ended, because the grading permit issued was not equivalent to the extraction activities, because DPW required GLUC approval to include Guam Raceway Federation's plans for reclamation of the land. This is what they require for quarries. And all agency requirements, including handling storm runoff, fall protection along the perimeter of the quarry operation, and erosion control plan. That's Department of Public Works. That's not me.
We're not quarrying. We don't fit under a quarry
They made a
permit.
finding.
We never set out to quarry anything. We're grading so we can build this racetrack. It's pointed out in our engineer's letter also. Could I read it into the record?
Do you want to read all the letters that we've received?
No, I just want to read this
Sure.
one letter. I'd like to read this letter. This is Apade, Madam Speaker Terlaje. Following is my testimony on the topics on today's public hearing. I cannot be present due to other commitments, so I respectfully ask that my testimony be read out loud during the hearing. Number one, regarding the status of CLTC eviction of GRF from Lot 7161-R1. Dwayne Camacho and Associates, Inc. has been involved with the development of the Guam Raceway Park since 1999, when we were engaged by the Guam Racing Federation to assist in the planning, design, and construction monitoring of the park on Lot 7161R1. Between 1997 and 2000, there was a flurry of legislative activity that resulted in the authorization to establish the Guam Raceway Park on the CLTC property, using tax credits as a means to develop the park. The development, the preamble to all enabling legislation over years that resulted in the creation and continuing development of the Raceway Park consistently touted the double public benefit of this project, enhancing tourism as well as providing safe and supervised racing for island youth and racing enthusiasts of all ages. And then he puts in capital letters, how has that changed? DCA developed the original Guam Racing, or GRP Guam Racing Park Master Plan under the direction of the GRF, along with expert guidance from internationally recognized motorsports facility consultants. DCA represented the GRF in seeking the necessary GLUC conditional use permit for Raceway Park development. The GLUC conditional use notice of action dated 8/10/2000 confirmed the public benefit of the use and issued the conditions to govern such use. The development of the Guam Raceway Park has followed the dictates of the NOA. The fact that the license issued to GRF has expired and has not been renewed does not invalidate the reasons for establishing the Raceway Park. If the property remains under the jurisdiction of the GLTC, it is my sincere hope that a new license can be negotiated such that the Guam Raceway Park can continue developing as envisioned by the Guam Raceway Park Master Plan. Number 2, status of the OPA audit of mineral extraction from Lot 7161. I do not understand how the development of the GRP has fallen under the category of mineral extraction. All documents and drawings developed over the 24-year period that DCA has been involved with this project refer to the earthwork as grading as necessary to reach target racetrack facility elevations. Regarding allegations that coral extraction may have been fraudulent, DCA's February 12, 2018 report concludes that the changes in the topography of the graded areas of the Raceway Park generally match the records of coral removed by the various contractors working on the site. The license agreement between the CLTC and the GRF indicated under recitals indicated that the portion of Lot 7161R1 designated for Raceway Park development declares that it is undevelopable for other commercial, agricultural, or residential use. Was this declaration a false premise? With all the grading improvements completed by the Raceway development, the CLTC now apparently believes that the site has significant commercial value. The terms of the now expired lease agreement gives the CLTC the option to determine whether or not it desires to have the property returned pristine condition. I'm assuming that given the impossibility of returning the property to pristine condition, the CLTC will gladly take the property in as-is condition, and that the site is now developable for either commercial purposes or for other commercial purposes. This is my opinion. This, in my opinion, is a blatant betrayal of the foundational reason for establishing the Guam Raceway Park. I believe the communication problem that has been plagued the development of the Guam Raceway Park and that has brought us to this hearing can be attributed to the many changes in CLTC and GITA personnel involved in the project over the years. The result has been the inconsistent transfer of institutional knowledge and records of the details of the project on the part of the government. Contrast that with the non-government side of the transactions. The officers of the Guam Racing Federation, including and notably Henry Simpson, and DCA have been involved for over 24 years. As a test of the validity of this comparison, can you tell me who at the CLTC, GITA, OPA, and the legislature have been involved in the development of the Guam Raceway Park? Bill 5637, number 3, Bill 5637. It is clear that the CLTC has abandoned the foundational reason for establishing the Guam Raceway Park and is seeking a way to remove the site, the properties, lot 7161, from the use as a raceway facility. Under the administration of the Guam Racing Federation, in effect to destroy the raceway park. I support Bill 5637 in that it will arrest the CLTC's current mission to destroy the raceway park. I hope that the facility can continue to develop and flourish on the jurisdiction of the Department of Parks and Recreation, whose mandate seems to cover and resonate with the original purpose and objectives of the park. This is not a guarantee of this as the success of the eventual development of the site into a bona fide integrated motor sport racing facility will depend on the Guam Racing Federation and Department of Parks and Rec working together toward the common goals established by the Guam Raceway Park Master Plan. With continued use of the site for motorsport racing, as will be made possible if this bill becomes law. It is well worth exploring moving forward. Thank you for the opportunity to comment on the Raceway Park issues and this bill. John P. Dwayne is president. Thank you.
Thank you very much for reading that testimony into the record, and I very much appreciate the vision that you had and all of the hard work to build this facility. The vision that you had, Senator Casper Bauer, did not envision mineral extraction. And I really appreciate the discipline, the skills, the hard work of all of those who use these facilities. They're very innocent in this, I think. They just want to race.
Yes.
Yes. And the Chamorro Land Trust wants to do its duty to the people of Guam and ensure that its lessees are abiding by lease terms, and that when they negotiate a new lease, that it abides by law. Do you think if this bill is passed that we're considering today to transfer the property to the Department of Parks and Rec, that the Department of Parks and Rec is going to enter into a lease with the Guam Raceway Federation?
We would hope so. We want to be treated like other sporting facilities. We want to be treated like the soccer fields. We want to be treated like the Northern Sports Complex. We want to be treated the same as other sporting facilities. So whatever types of leases they have and rental agreements and things like that, we would like to have that same thing for the racing group. So that we have a fair chance of continuing on. Our people are very active. They're willing to work on the track, work with the track, work for the track, help out, and make sure that things are done. So we won't be a burden on Parks and Recreation. We will not ask them for any money. We won't ask them for any management. We wouldn't ask them for any part of it. In fact, we may be able to help them because we hopefully will generate money in the end. It's said that running the racetrack is a money-losing situation or a non-profit situation, and it really is when you consider what you do for the local community. Because the guys on Friday night, right? We do a dollar drag night, Friday nights, dollar a run or $1. We do different specials like that to make sure the guys can afford to come out and race. And so those kind of things you can't make money to maintain the track and everything with. But if you do specials like we have our Smoking Wheels once a year, our Smoking Wheels race it basically pays our insurance bill for the year. We need to raise money to pay our insurance bill, make sure we've got we're required by our license to have $1 million worth of liability insurance for the track. So that runs almost $30,000, and we try and raise that every year at Smoking Wheels. If we are successful in getting a Guam Grand Prix, we can pay for a general manager. We can contribute money to Parks and Recreation. We can be a strong contributor to the overall success of, Parks and Recreation. And hopefully that's what the future will hold for us. And again, we did look at that 600-acre piece, but you can't build a drag strip there. And so that was always the quandary for me as trying to put all these different interests together. I'm basically a motorcycle rider, off-road racer, but I knew that the guys from the drag strip and the drag racing part needed a place to go. The only way we can succeed is succeed together. So by and also the government really wanted us to do a Guam Grand Prix. They actually wanted us to do the Guam Grand Prix in Tumon, and we studied it, John Camacho and I and some others, and we came up with the conclusion that you can't do it in Tumon because you will block too many roads, you'll block off the hotels, and you could only use it once a year. And at the end result is you need a Guam racing facility to hold a Guam Grand Prix. And that idea has been around a long time. I wanted to...
Yes, thank you, Mr. Simpson. And you're right. The government of Guam has supported that idea for a very long time.
One point is Public Law 13-48 set aside almost 200 acres up in Salisbury Junction in 1974, I believe. Yeah, July 3rd, 1975. An act to authorize the setting aside of a long-term lease and the long-term leasing of government land for a multi-purpose speedway park. And so this was going along really good, and what happened was the second oil crisis hit. And at this point, the government was planning on paying for building a speedway park and running it under Parks and Recreation. When the second oil crisis hit, they couldn't afford to do it anymore, and it died out. And so it wasn't until the idea of being able to build the track by using tax credits that we were able to move forward on building a new track. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and what you highlight is exactly the difference between the lease that you can have with the Chamorro Land Trust and the Department of Parks and Rec. The Department of Parks and Rec has no authority to lease you something for 50 years, not without legislative authority. They did not give the soccer field without legislative authority. They did not give the tennis courts without legislative authority, and they never gave $8 million in tax credits to any of those entities, like they did to the Guam Raceway Federation, and none of those entities asked to remove the minerals and get the profits. None of them. That's the difference. So if you want to get a lease with Department of Parks and Rec, you're going to have to come to the legislature again.
We understand.
And
we understand.
If you wanted a lease without mineral extraction, you could have had one by now.
We understand.
It's very clear. It's already authorized.
I'm sorry?
A lease without mineral extraction is already authorized in law for you. First dibs. You don't have one because you refuse to agree to one without mineral extraction.
No, that wasn't part of the problem.
And I want all the racers, and I am asking you,
Mr.
Chrysostomo, Mr. Jones, and all of you to please make that very clear. Because we have people coming in here telling us we are trying to take away their track. No one wants to do that. And we've worked for years. This lease has been expired since 2018.
that wasn't the problem. Mineral extraction wasn't the problem.
That's what
with
their
the
lawyers
lease.
said was
It
the
wa-
problem, and that was the difference between
It was
your lease and
10% of the
theirs.
value of the property was the problem.
That too, that you wouldn't pay the payments, you didn't want to pay the payments that the Chamorro Land Trust was requesting. That's correct.
Well, it would be something like, so let's say we've got 1 million square meters there.
understand.
It's $10 a square meter,
No,
right?
I
That's $1
understand.
million a year, $1 million a year in rent. You know, you divide that by 12, and what do you got, $80,000 a month? Nobody can pay $80,000 a month. I mean, Senator Limtiaco said, you'll never get 10% of the value of the property for something like that. And so
That's possible.
that's what
But
stopped
that's
it, not mineral
what
extraction.
made the negotiations end.
I'm sorry?
That's not the only thing that made the negotiations end.
That was it. That was the end. We can't pay
I'm
that
reading the
kind of...
minutes. I'm reading the minutes. I am reading the
I was
records from
there.
their council.
I was
Yes.
there. It was
All right.
$85,000 a month is not something that we can pay for a racetrack.
All right. When this project was put before the Guam Land Use Commission, it needed approval. They stated that they would remove 2 million cubic yards, or 200 truckloads total, to build us all the way up to the Grand Prix for 20 years, over 20 years. We don't have a Grand Prix, but we've removed over 4 million cubic yards before 2017. And we paid $8 million in tax credits.
If
And we pay
the
for the-
property was appraised, you would have probably $15 million in improvements, hard improvements in the ground with the asphalt, the telephone poles, the bleachers, all the things that have been built are much more valuable now than when they were built at cost. And also the value of what we...
Okay, yes, but that's 200,000 truckloads that were approved versus 468,000 truckloads by the year 2017.
The engineering
I'm
drawings
not even
haven't
talking
changed.
about
I'd like to go check
2018
that
to
because
2022. Yes, please. That's fine. I'm going to open the floor to the sponsor of the bill, Senator Nicolas. Any questions for the panel? Some of them are still here. Some of them left early.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Simpson, you're being accused, on social media, the public of, a lot of improprieties here, sir. Could you clear this up for me? Are you stealing rock?
No, I'm not stealing any rock. I asked Smithbridge, I need you guys to check and see how could I collude with one of their guys to steal rock? And he said, well, first you got to have a dump truck. I don't have a dump truck. Everything is done by checks. Everything has checks and balances. They have a lot more checks and balances than we do. They don't want one of their guys to go off to his party's house with a load of dirt that they've got all the money invested in. So there's really no way to steal rock out there, and I'm not stealing rock because I want to build the track, not steal rock.
So when all these things come out from Chamorro Land Trust about all this conjecture, statements and stuff, how does that make you feel?
Well, it makes me feel bad for the racetrack because it's painting me as the leader of these guys as somebody that is stealing something. It makes the guys that help me out look bad because, oh, you're with that guy that's stealing rock. And it's like no good deed goes unpunished. I've been volunteering since 2007 until now in an unpaid position just to try and see this get through. I'm 75 years old. I want to step down from this, but I want to see that the track has a long-term protection so that it can carry on. We need to have a permanent drag strip. We really need for tourism to have a Grand Prix course. And we need our guys to have their motorcycle track, their bicycle tracks. All the other things that are out there are very, very important. And I looked around when we were going to get kicked out by the firing range. There aren't other places that you can do this. And so it upsets me that I'm being accused of stealing from out there. But I'm looking forward to the OPA report because I know there's nothing missing. All the engineering reports have showed that, if anything, the contractors have actually overpaid for the material that's taken. And it's excess graded materials. It's not mineral extraction.
Thank you, sir, for your testimony. Thank you, everybody, for your testimony. I'm going to be very honest with you. The only reason why I want to save this track is for the kids.
Yes.
I'll throw myself under the bus. I'd sell my soul to the devil himself. When I saw all those smiles up there, it's worth it.
Yeah.
That's why I'm doing this.
Yeah.
And
Well,
if making this into a recreational facility, transferring it to Department of Public Parks and Recs, even if they don't want it, it's worth saving.
Yeah.
This track saves lives. It gets our people off the streets.
Yes.
It shows us the capabilities we have to the
Yes.
international community.
Yes.
It fosters new talent. And perhaps maybe one of these days, we're going to have another Mr. Simpson. Mr. Simpson, you've been very generous to this island community. And as a Santa Claus, I think I want to say this. On behalf of the children of the people of Guam, the youth, sir, thank you very much for your service.
You're
I have
welcome.
nothing further.
Thank you for introducing this bill, and I hope it leads to something that can work into the future. The attorney for the Chamorro Land Trust also said in his interview, he says, maybe it takes this eviction to get the legislature to fix this problem. So there is a problem. You know, the commercial lease doesn't work. Nobody's got one. Nobody's ever used one. Maybe we don't fit under Parks and Recreation, but we fit somewhere. We fit somewhere. There's a huge demand for this racing facility. Not always has been, but there is a huge demand for it now. It needs to be looked at. It needs to be taken care of. It needs the proper attention to it. And I think the dividends of having a Grand Prix track, the dividends of having a really nice drag strip, and then all of our off-road racing will pay off more than you can ever imagine. Ever imagine. Thank you again. I appreciate you introducing this bill, and I appreciate you, Madam Speaker, bringing this up. And Mr. Malfunction, thank you, sir.
Senator Barnett.
Thank you, Henry. Oh boy. It's just interesting to me that we have the Department of Public Works has come out and said that you were overdoing it with the grading. The Chamorro Land Trust.
I don't think they've ever said that.
They did. It's on, and that's what I think the big issue is here is we have a refusal to accept generally the facts of the case.
Well,
like we're looking at things
I'd like
in,
to go
in
to
black.
the track with
I'm
you.
sorry, sir. We're looking at things in black and white, and you are trying to dispute it with just words. And we have again whole government agencies who are talking about you violating the terms of this lease, and you say that you want to protect the long-term future of the racetrack. You had an opportunity to do that with a 50-year lease that did not include mineral extraction or Cusco mining, and you decided not to accept that and those terms.
No, that's not the truth.
And so I know you love racing, and I think that we've established here in this hearing the notion, the idea that we can save the track even without Henry Simpson at the head of it. And I don't mean any offense. I know you love racing, and I'm just so sorry for all of these young racers and these people who love motorsports. I love motorsports, and I feel bad that they are caught in the crossfire and that you have convinced them into thinking that if they lose the Racing Federation as the head of the raceway, that the track will be disposed of or destroyed, like you read in your testimony. The only people who are disagreeing with what the Chamorro Land Trust is saying, what the Department of Public Works is saying, what the Department of Agriculture is saying, are people who are benefiting off of this mining extraction, grading, or whatever you call it. So I just really wish that you would see the lay of the land and maybe step down and save the kids and the racing community from any further trouble, any further division, any further risk of losing this facility, because we have heard from the Land Trust themselves that they do want to keep the racetrack. But what they don't want to do is to continue to have this cloud hanging over where we don't even know how much Cascal was taken. We don't even, I mean, Alice had testified right here on the record that they haven't seen much of anything from the different events that you have at the track. And I know you've had a lot of events at the track because I've hosted a lot of them. And so there are many issues, many issues, Mr. Simpson, from the grading to the events to just the progress of the facilities up at the track that I think are very concerning, and that's what's leading to all of these questions. No one is questioning the 14-year-old girl who races the dirt bike. No one is questioning the Conker family or the drag strip. It's really the federation and the leadership represented by you that has cast this huge shadow and jeopardized this entire facility and the use of it for our kids, which is really, to me, very unfortunate, because we have already established on the record that we can save the track and we can move forward with somebody else running it.
I'm more than willing to have somebody else run it, believe me. I've been trying to step down for quite some time. I've asked many others in our group to step up and take, but everybody's really busy or too busy, and we can't afford to hire somebody. So it's fallen on me to volunteer to do this. I've done the best I can. I actually want to step down from it. So, but again, I don't like to step back under a shadow.
I know. I'm not saying to step back under a shadow. I'm just saying that forgive me, but it appears to me that according to everybody who is looking at this, that you're the problem.
I'm the problem.
I'm just saying that's what it is.
I am more than willing to step down from it. We get somebody to take it over as long as we don't lose the racetrack.
Sure, and that's, I think we all are agreeing that we don't want to lose the racetrack.
Yeah.
But we don't want to, I'm not comfortable allowing the fleecing of, the people of Guam's property. Yeah. And we can't even get an accurate read on how much was taken. I mean, we had someone testify that they had audited from a certain year forward with no mention about everything before that. So I'm just not comfortable in looking at all of the documents and the things that the Chamorro Land Trust have said, or the things that other government agencies have said. I've been up to the track. I've seen, I can't be unconvinced of what I've seen with my own eyes. And I've seen, it's massive, huge excavating, and it is quarrying. I know the definition of quarrying, and I know that you're saying that's not what's being done, but I read a letter in here where you apologized to the Chamorro Land Trust because you said that you got ahead of yourself with the grading. So I think even in your own words that have been provided in black and white, that you have admitted that you have exceeded what was allowed. And so that's where I'm at with this. And I thank you again, Mr. Simpson. I know you've contributed so much to the island. And it's rather unfortunate that it's kind of culminated in this, this scandal that I really hope that we can get past, for the sake of the kids and the racing community at large, sir.
If it takes me stepping down and somebody else stepping up to finish this, I'm more than happy to. And when we said that I exceeded what we had planned on, it was still a permitted activity. We still had a grading permit for it, but we couldn't get an engineer due to COVID to come out and do a measurement. And it was strictly a measurement requirement. So it wasn't required by DPW, it wasn't required by any, but it was an agreement that I had with the Chamorro Land Trust. We would go to this far and then we would measure. And then we couldn't get anybody to measure, the contractor goes, hey, if I have to demobilize, I can't come back here for a while, and they have to stop. And she says, well, hurry up and see if you can get his engineer to come out and do it. And so it got past where we wanted it to stop, but it got measured and it got collected, and it all is accounted for. There's no missing material there. It was the date of a measurement is what was the problem. So it's an extremely difficult thing to manage. And I still would like to take you out there and go through it with you, especially those cliffs, because everybody says, wow, those cliffs are so high. What we are asked to do there is build a drag strip behind that outcropping so the noise won't leave our property. And in order to do that, the last thing we have to do is take down, we got to build the new drag strip first before we can take the old one down. So otherwise people would be out of a place to race. So there's an explanation for all of it. I'm not stealing anything, but I'm more than willing to step down if we get somebody else to take over.
Yeah, and you know, I'm not telling you what to do, but I'm just saying it is what it is, that this whole issue with the extraction and the violating of the lease has led to this juncture. You know, the Chamorro Land Trust didn't wake up yesterday and say, oh, we want to evict you just for funsies. I mean, you, according to them, have violated the lease. According to the Department of Public Works and other agencies, you have exceeded what you were allowed to do on that property, and these, unfortunately, are the consequences of that.
Yeah, I don't remember ever getting a violation for Public Works. I don't think I ever got one. Maybe somebody could show me.
Mrs. Tarn?
Thank you, Senator. I just wanted to clarify that the eviction was served and the Chamorro Land Trust is going to proceed. And so an invitation, is that an admission?
I was going to say, how could he take us on a tour of a property that he's not even a legal leaseholder of?
So I just wanted to clarify that. And
yeah. Could you just answer that, Mr. Simpson? If you have been duly evicted by the Chamorro Land Trust Commission, why haven't you vacated the property, and do you have any plans to do that?
We talked to our attorney, and he said...
For the record, who is your attorney?
Randy Cunliffe. Okay. And he said the Chamorro Land Trust needs to go to court to give us an eviction. And if that comes before we have our public hearing, we could sue the Chamorro Land Trust for not giving us their 50-year lease that we were entitled to. So, and again, it's basically until we can have this public hearing so that the track has a chance to continue. And so, if the track has a chance to continue to live on, who else would, I'll step down as the general manager of the Guam Racing Federation, but you still need to have a group together that represents all the various racing entities to deal with the track. And we've been put together, we've been a nonprofit now since 1997, so.
Did you have another clarification?
Yes, yes, Senator. The gentleman that was here earlier as well, he indicated that...
Which gentleman?
The, Mr. Bob?
Mr. Busick, the one who got out of order?
Yeah, the one who got upset?
Bob.
Yeah.
So I apologize for his action, sorry.
So he had mentioned that you hosted an event just recently?
That was last year.
Last year? Yeah. Okay. I just wanted to be sure.
Yeah.
And that they've been having other events. If that's the case, having other events since the eviction, the Chamorro Land Trust Commission is not aware, has not been made aware of those
I don't know
events.
anything about all that, ma'am. I did host for a friend of mine. I hosted a youth motocross event that they told me they had to pay their federation like $8,000 just to have that event. Did you see any money from that?
Not to my knowledge. I'd have to take a look at our books, no. We did have a request for the...
that helps pay our rent.
We did have a request from the Electric Island Light Festival, and my understanding is when I was informed, they're asking to use it for a short period of time, but the law doesn't allow us to give them a short period of time license at the time. And they had indicated that they pay about $8,000 for about 2 days for use. And I checked, we've never seen anything from that. And that's not counting the admission fee.
And if you could, again, just clarify while Mr. Simpson is here, what is the arrangement according to the lease that, when they receive $8,000 from, youth motocross racers that they have to pay to have an event at the track that's for the racers, or whether it's they receive $8,000 for an electric island festival?
I believe it's $2 per admission or 10%, whichever is greater. Okay. So I haven't seen with regard to the Electric Island Festival.
And this is what we're talking about. There's just many questions and concerns. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate it. Thank you, Henry.
Thank you very much.
You guys done with me?
Mr. Nelson, you're a subcontractor on the property? Ms. Tyron, Director, is subcontracting authorized by the lease?
Any subcontracting has to come to the Chamorro Land Trust Commission for approval.
All right. I don't mean to put you on the spot that way, but I just want to point out that those are the grounds that we have been presented. So no fault of yours, but that's how it's being managed. Those things are not going to the Chamorro Land Trust Commission. I think, Mr. Cruz, you mentioned some others, right? None of that has gone through the Chamorro Land Trust Commission. Okay, my apologies then. Is that correct?
I think
I'd have to...
2013, if you look at the minutes of the Chamorro Land Trust, I can get you the dates if you want.
In 2013?
Yeah, it was
all right. Okay, thank you. Appreciate that.
Approved.
It is one of the issues that was brought up. It's one of the issues that was actually mandated by statute because not many things were mandated by statute. There's such a great latitude for negotiation. That was one of them in the old statutes, not even in the new one, but in the old one.
One of the problems that's consistently come up is this 10% or $2 or that kind of thing for entry fees for the track. Since Senator Casper Bauer is here, our initial law, there was like 3 laws that were put into place, didn't have a $2 per head fee in there, except for tickets that were over $20. So the idea was that if we had a Grand Prix, we had a big race, the government would benefit by having a $2.
Yeah, that's not my question. Yeah, that's not my question. I just wanted to know whether subleases that are not allowed by law unless they are approved by the Chamorro Land Trust, whether the Chamorro Land Trust had approved all of the subleases that we've heard about today. That's all. That was my only question.
There's only one sublease. But I would like to make that point if you don't mind.
Can I add something in there?
Pardon?
Can I add something in there? He was talking about that. I haven't been at the drag strip since 2012 or early 2013. But prior to then, we were trying to market in any way we could. And it was understood, especially at times when Ben Pangilinan was very critical of us, that anything we did in conjunction with like GVB and those government-sponsored events, we didn't abide by the $2 a head. So I just wanted to clarify that.
All right.
Those are some of the events that,
Thank you.
that were exempted and accepted by the current, at that time, CLTC Commission.
All right, thank you. From what I look at on the eviction resolution from the Chamorro Land Trust, or their resolution in opposition to the bill, they don't talk about the way past. They're only talking about kind of more recent occurrences. But anyways, yeah, so this is a difficult issue. I think the people of Guam, the Guam legislature over and over and over has been very, very supportive of a racetrack for all of the reasons that everyone has testified. For all of those reasons, no one has lost that support. They've been very clear since the very beginning. First, it was intended to be on private property. Then on the side, there was a lease with the Chamorro Land Trust. And if you're going to lease with the Chamorro Land Trust, then you have to abide by the Chamorro Land Trust conditions. And when the new law said no mineral extraction, that's where we are today. And I want to make it very clear that I would have waited for the OPA audit. I asked the sponsor to hold this hearing off, to hold this bill off until we do hear back from the auditor, from the Attorney General. I'm waiting. But he insisted that we have to have this hearing now. So we're having the hearing. The Department of Parks and Rec objects to the transfer of the land from the Chamorro Land Trust to them. The Chamorro Land Trust objects to the transfer of land out of the Chamorro Land Trust. GITA, who's supposed to be monitoring, is not here today. They were charged by law and rules to monitor all of the activities on this raceway. And I would say they were supposed to monitor how much extraction was really made. And the CLTC has made it very clear in their testimony, they have no issue with the race track, with the racing activities. They have issues with the mineral extraction, with the other things that they listed, and there's a list of them. So please make sure that all your members are very clear of their list. We're being told now in the media and by you, Mr. Simpson here, that you're not going to vacate the property no matter what the Chamorro Land Trust asks you to do. And then I have someone yelling at me here that this property belongs to him, and how dare we even question anything about it.
We plan on following our attorney's advice.
Well, I think that's a very blatant disregard for the people of Guam, who have given you $8 million in tax credits, who have let you use this property and benefit from it financially as well, who recognize all of the racers and who have tried so hard to negotiate a new lease with you. And you want to say, we're not moving, that's up to you. I just find that if you're looking for support, we want to support the racers. I personally do not want to support anyone who wants to come in here and act like this land belongs to them, that they are entitled to this money from the people of Guam, that the Chamorro Land Trust does not need to benefit. Not me. And I support racers. I support the youth. I've been up to this track. I love all the people involved. I have nothing personal against any of them. But don't anybody come in here and try to pretend like we're stupid. I'm reading the documents that are in front of me. And I welcome you, all of you, to do the same. You read the reports from the Department of Public Works. You read the reports from the Department of Ag. You read these financial statements. You read them. Because whatever they want to brag that they gave to the Chamorro Land Trust, they also gave themselves in mineral extraction. And we gave them $8 million on top of all of that. So the original intent, for me, I still stand behind. We have to work together. And I'm going to continue to do that. And so I hope that all of you will as well. And I'll invite the sponsor to please close on the bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, it's really important for me to help save the track. I've gone up there twice. My dad kept me away from these kinds of sporting things. He thought I'd kill myself. And so that was the first time I actually went up to actually see the track and actually see the kids in action. And it was really worth every moment. It was worth every moment I was up there. I have Mr. Simpson come to me, and a lot of other people come to me and talk to me on both sides on the measure, how it may be beneficial or why it shouldn't. But if anybody knows me, you know I do things because after great deal of deliberation in my head, you know, I think this is the best way to go. Keeping it in the Chamorro Land Trust, my feeling is that it's always going to be a hot topic when you talk about land, especially when ethnicity is involved, when race is involved. And I can understand that, I can appreciate that. Why? Because Chamorro people had many struggles, you know, throughout our colonization and all that stuff. So I understand the importance of having property kept for the benefit of the people of the Chamorro people of Guam. However, when I went out to the track, I saw different colored kids of every ethnicity, every color under the sun, and that's why I'm doing this. To preserve that track not only for the indigenous population of this island, but for all children of this island for many, many years to come. And that's why I did this, and I think it deserves an explanation. I know Mr. Simpson personally, because I met him like, 6 years ago. The guy has been so generous. One of the most generous, kindest guys I know. And when I first ran for office, he actually came down to see me because he said, did you lose your mind? But God puts us in positions to do the right things. And I think I'm here to help him, the rest of the people in the community, to help save this racetrack that Senator Casper Bauer and everybody else here have worked so hard to put together, to sustain. And that's why I do apologize for bringing you out here all this time. I know we're all recovering together, but I ask you the same, that we all recover together. And we find it in our hearts to move and protect this racetrack for all coming time, for all our children. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Nicolas. As committee chair, I just want to make it very clear on the record, I did not hear any testimony regarding race. I did not hear any allegations regarding race. I didn't hear any senator in here saying they want to protect one race over another. We want to protect racers. We want to support them. We want to support the Chamorro Land Trust Commission in its work. There being no additional, again, thank you to all of you, especially those who stayed this long. There being no additional individuals to present further testimony, we have several written testimonies that I have not written into the record, but they will be included in the committee report and posted online. This committee will consider Bill number 56-37 COR duly heard. The committee will remain open for submission of testimony for the next 5 working days following this hearing. Testimony can be sent via email to Senator Terlaje @gmail.com or hand-delivered here to the Congress building or to my office. The time is now 8:25 p.m. Situs Masi.